we are going to try this again, and I am going to chat with someone real quick, and we'll see if it's working. Okay. Here we go. Sending this link. You just got to keep going, guys. Sometimes something doesn't work. You try again. Just bear with me 1 minute. Thank you to these people who are helping me figure this out. Yay, it's working. Okay, thank you, Liv. All right, that's fantastic. I am going to send this to you guys now. Liv, you're welcome to stay on and watch, but you don't have to. Thank you. All right, ladies, I just sent out the new link with the working live feed. If there's a problem, send me a GChat or an email and let me know if something stops or it freezes or something like that. Usually it works pretty well. I think they just changed the settings for Google Hangouts since the last snow day. So thanks a lot, Google. So yeah, I'm just gonna wait a little bit and have everyone sign on since I just sent the link and I signed back on to my GChat. So yeah, welcome everyone. Let me just sit here awkwardly for a second and have people take a minute to sign on. And I'm gonna have a drink of water because that was hard work. All right, so a couple things. I mentioned this in the first attempt at the broadcast, so I'm going to repeat myself. First of all, I'm sitting in my kitchen dining area, and it's a beautiful snow day. I'm looking outside at my backyard, and it's gorgeous. The only downside to that is that there was a leak in my ceiling this morning. So there is someone who might be coming to repair it. However, my brother is here, of course. So you might hear him and he might have to answer the door and let the guy or girl in who is going to come fix the leak. That is in my bedroom. So I woke up to that fun story this morning. But everything seems to be okay now, and I hope everybody is safe and cozy and warm. And yeah, so freshmen, welcome to your first live broadcast. I've been doing these for a couple of years now, and I think it's a really good way to handle a cyber snow day. Instead of just giving you an assignment, which is, assignments are great, I'd rather do what I would be doing if I were to see you guys, which is just standing in front of you and talking. And one of the things I encourage you to do is to sign on to your GChat. If you haven't added me, you'll probably see me on there. Or you can send me an email as I chat a little bit about Romeo and Juliet. You can ask me questions, and periodically I'll check my GChat to see if you're tuning in and if you have questions or if you're confused about something. So yeah, like I said earlier, the Google Hangouts has changed its format a little bit. So I might pause and try to find out if maybe there's a message that I'm missing, and if I haven't seen it, just send me another email or something like that. So yeah, all right, here we go. So this isn't going to be a super long broadcast. We're not starting something new. What I thought I would do is actually just review Act 2 and the beginning of Act 3 of Romeo and Juliet, your favorite Shakespeare play. For some of you, it might be your only Shakespeare play that you've read. But you do have your test this week. At this point in time, I am not a weather god, therefore I do not know if we have school tomorrow or not. I know that many of you will probably be wishing that we don't. So just a quick reminder, when we miss days, we come back and we will be using whatever cycle day we would have had. So for example, today is a cycle 5. That doesn't mean that when we come back, we'll have a cycle 5. We're just gonna skip this day right over. So just keep an eye on your syllabus and your schedule and figure out when you're gonna see me. So for example, if we don't have school tomorrow, check and see what period you'll be having me, because I think for my freshmen, yeah, for all of you, the next time you see me is your test day. So you want to use a little bit of this time that you have with the Cyber Snow Day to review, and I thought this would be an excellent opportunity to do that. So I'm going to open up lovely big book. Copy at home, guys. I love it so much. To Act 2 of Romeo and Juliet. So here we go. I should have prepped this in advance, but I was too busy. How to work the new Google Drive. Okay, here we go. Romeo and Juliet, guys. Such an uplifting play. So positive. It's all just oh my gosh, I can't speak. Rainbows and unicorns and lollipops. All right, here we go. So Act 2. Here we go, guys. I can do this. Act 2 starts on page 764. Some of you are probably already there and shouting it at the computer screen. I'm sorry. But in my book, it starts on 764. And this might be a slightly older version. Some of you have a slightly newer version. So go ahead and find where it is in your book. You can also be using No Fear Shakespeare, which I encourage you to use. So one of the things that I like to say about a Romeo and Juliet test, or any kind of Shakespeare test, or test for a novel in general, is that if you could teach me what's happening, that means you're ready. So I think I've mentioned this in class before, but oh, thanks, Katie. It's page 843. Wow, that is definitely not the right page number then. Okay, so one of the things that I used to do in college when I was taking literature courses, history courses, is I would really just sit in the student lounge by myself, hopefully, with my book in front of me and my notes and whatever novel I was studying or poetry, what have you. And essentially I would just like talk out loud to myself. I mean, I would sit there and be like, okay, chapter 1, this is what's happening. This is who's in this chapter. This is why it's important. Chapter 2, Hillary, this is what's happening. Okay, so if someone walked by, they probably would think that I was a little crazy. But it was very effective as a form of studying. And really, I just think at that point in time when you're able to say like this is happening, that means you're ready in it and you feel confident about it as well. Okay, so in the beginning of Act 2, Mercutio and Benvolio are in front of Romeo in scene 1, and they're looking for him because he's somehow disappeared after the ball, after the masked ball. And remember, like, this is dangerous. He shouldn't be at the Capulets because he is a Montague. So he's already risking things by being at this Montague party. So we know Romeo is kind of a bit of a risk taker. He's a bit silly, honestly. He's just so in love with love. He has to go see Juliet, just like he had to go see Rosaline. We all know that women are a little more practical, guys. Okay, so Romeo is wandering around, and Benvolio and Mercutio are making fun of him and wondering where he is. And Mercutio, again, who's kind of upset with Romeo since Romeo hasn't been himself and he's just so lost in this world of love. Mercutio wants him to get over it. But anyway, so the beginning scene is just quickly the two of them sort of wondering where he is. I realize like I'm looking at myself and not at the video. I always do that. All right, so scene 2 is the very beginning. Romeo says, he just set scars and never felt a wound. That's him replying to Mercutio from the first scene. He's saying, like, Mercutio, you don't understand. You haven't been in love. You don't understand the pain that I'm going through. Blah, blah, blah. Romeo, we feel really bad for you. Okay, so he says that, and he comes into the garden, and Juliet is at her window. Fun fact that I learned, balconies actually did not exist in Shakespeare's time, nor did the word balcony exist. I just found this out. So actually there technically is no balcony. It's just a window, but this over time and different interpretations have led people to just call it the balcony scene. Crazy, I know, mind blown. So anyway, he looks up and he sees a light. And if you guys remember, there's a lot of discussion of light and dark and darkness and the sun and things like that. And it's supposed to be this contrast between light and dark and hope and sadness. And so this whole scene is meant to mirror what's happening to Romeo and Juliet and the fact that they're in love, but at the same time they're fated to die. Again, quite an uplifting story. So he looks up and he says, "But soft, what through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun." So Romeo goes off on like just this sort of metaphorical adventure, comparing Juliet to all these beautiful things like jewels. And he says, "Oh, I wish I were a glove upon that hand." Again, just he's like the stereotypical charming in love teenage boy of the time. He has all the right things to say. And he's listening to Juliet kind of like a creeper as she's talking. So he gets to hear sort of her inner thoughts. And of course, we know what Juliet says. She confesses that she's in love with this guy. And she says, "Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. Or if thou wilt not be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet." And so this really powerful moment happens in this scene where Juliet does two things which are kind of progressive for the time. First of all, she says, "Why do you have to be Romeo? Why do you have to be a Montague? You know, be some other person and you would still be the same," right? So she's willing to meet someone and fall in love with someone for who they are, not for whatever family they come from. So we have to give her a lot of credit for that. And then she says, "And if you love me, I'll no longer be a Capulet," which is like huge because she's basically saying, I will deny my family. I will deny everything that I've known my entire life because I love you. And that's an immensely powerful thing to say. Now, whether or not the debate is whether or not they feel this or it's because they're so young, but that's up for discussion. So she goes on to say, you know, "'Tis but thy name that is my enemy," and what's in a name, right? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So she's saying again, like, I love you for you. Your name means nothing to me. Why are names so important? I really like Juliet. And Romeo finally jumps out from the bushes. He's like, "I'm here, I love you too." And she's like, "Oh my God, you know, who are you? Why are you here?" She finally realizes who he is. And like how we got over the wall. Juliet's very practical. I really love this about her. She's like, "How did you get here? Don't you know that it's dangerous? Also, how much did you hear?" And Romeo's like, "Oh, don't worry about that. You know, I have night's cloak to hide me from their eyes." He's in the darkness, so he's like, "They won't catch me." And he's like, "Oh, I climbed over the walls because my love for you is so great," and yada, yada, yada. And Juliet's like, "Okay, well, just FYI, you know, I didn't know you were there, so I might not have said all the stuff that I love about you if I'd known you were there." But then she really starts to kind of question. She's like, "Well, do you love me?" And I wonder if anybody actually knows. I'm going to pause right here and ask a quiz question. Does anybody know what Romeo says when she asks him how to prove his love? Pause. For anyone trying to answer that question. And she like chastises him for this. She says like, that doesn't work. How does he swear his love? Okay, guys, come on, someone answer. All right, so Romeo actually swears by the moon, right? He says, "Lady, by yonder blessed bough that tips with silver all these fruit tree tops," and she's like, "Shut up." Swear not by the moon, the inconstant moon, that monthly changes in her circle orb, likewise variable. So she says, don't swear by the moon. The moon is always changing, right? I don't want your love to be constantly changing. And so Romeo's like, well, all right, I'm out of lines. What should I swear by? And she's like, just swear on yourself, right? Good job, whoever answered that. Okay, so yeah, like we said, he swears by the moon. I might be on a little bit of a delay, or sorry, you might be on a little bit of delay if you're signing on to see the live stream. So maybe like refresh a page or something to come back to what's happening currently. And remember, this will be a permanent link. So this will, as soon as we're done, you can come back and revisit this as much as you like. All right, so anyway, they share their love vows, and then they agree at the end that they're going to get married. They just met that night, okay? This is not your typical Sally's dance, all right? No one's getting married the night of Sal's-on, okay? All right, so that is the end of the balcony scene. Technically no balcony, but that's the end of that scene 2. All right, scene 3, we finally meet Friar Lawrence, and we meet him as he's working in the garden, and he has all these plants surrounding him, and he's looking at weeds and flowers, and he's having this conversation about how plants reflect humanity, how there's beautiful plants, there's poisonous plants, there's also flowers that might appear beautiful on the outside, but are actually poisonous on the inside. Oh wait, someone has told me that the live stream is working. Maybe the internet? No. Okay, so yeah. If it keeps skipping, just let me know. And remember, you can always go back and watch this again. Yeah. If it keeps skipping, just let me know. Okay, sorry if you're listening to my voice twice. And remember, okay. All right. So, scene 3, we have the friar, and he's talking about how the good and evil in them, or humans might appear one way on the outside, but be not so good on the inside, right? So this idea of appearances and being deceiving. So Romeo shows up, and he's like super happy, and Friar Lawrence is like, Romeo, the last time I saw you, you were uber depressed. What has happened? Have you somehow managed to get with Rosaline, and now you're happy and in love? And he's like, Rosaline, what? Who's that? So he's like forgotten her completely, and Friar Lawrence is like lecturing him. He's, Romeo, like, how could you just completely forget about this girl that you were so in love with yesterday? He's like, young men, maybe they're just more falling in love with women's appearances and being in love. And Romeo's like, no, this is real, okay? And I want you to marry us. Friar's like, oh my God. And so at first he's against the idea, but then he thinks about it, and he thinks, well, maybe if I marry them, I can end this feud. And we all know this to be dramatic irony, because we know that Romeo and Juliet are going to end up killing themselves, and that's how the feud will end. It is not going to end because they get married. Something is going to have to go wrong. All right. So then we cut to scene 4, which is Mercutio and Benvolio are talking, and they find out that Tybalt has sent a letter to Romeo's house and saying that he wants to fight Romeo, essentially duel and kill him. And Mercutio's like, oh, Romeo, he's not going to have a good time of it, because Tybalt is a really good swordsman. It's Prince of Cats. And finally, Romeo shows up, and he's, obviously in a very good mood. And they're like, oh, Romeo, you're so different, right? Mercutio's very happy about this. And that's when the nurse comes into the scene and asks to speak with Romeo privately. And Romeo says, to the nurse, send Juliet to confession to Shrift this afternoon, and that's where we'll be married. So quick recap. They met last night, and now they're getting married today. Yeah, no wonder this ends badly. Okay, so then the nurse leaves, and then we cut to scene 5, where Juliet is waiting for the nurse, and the nurse is taking forever, and then she finally shows up, and then she keeps talking because the nurse is very annoying and also sort of comedic relief, and Juliet's like, oh my God, just tell me what happened. And the nurse finally says, look, do you have leave to go to Shrift this afternoon? And that Juliet will be going to confession to marry Romeo. And they're all very happy. Guys, Act 2 is probably the last act where there's generally happy things going on. Because we all know that after Act 3, Scene 1, it just goes downhill. Okay, so the very last scene of Act 2, the very end of Act 2, is in Friar Lawrence's cell, and that's where Romeo and Juliet get married. And Friar Lawrence kind of lectures them again and says, you know, be careful, be patient. You know, this is, I know you're in love now and you're so passionate, feel so passionately towards each other, but, you know, sometimes these things can die out. And he says, these violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die, like fire and powder. So like something explodes, right? But then it goes away. He says sometimes these like violent passions and loves and, you know, joy, they can end just as quickly. And he says, therefore love moderately. Long love doth so. Too swift arrives, as tardy as too slow. So love moderately, be patient. And take your time, which they are not doing, and he's marrying them, so obviously they're not taking their time at all. And so finally at the very end, he does marry them. So the end of Act 2, Romeo and Juliet are married. Okay, so right now I'm going to stop for a minute, and I want you to maybe look at your questions, look at maybe your study guides that you've done, and I'll just give you guys a minute to chat me or email me any questions that you have. I'm gonna drink my water. I feel like most of you are probably still in bed right now. So a lot of you will be watching this later, not live. It is really pretty out though. There's like icicles everywhere. Oh, okay, so I have a question. The question is, why, oh, the question disappeared. Where did it go? Okay, the question is, why does the nurse take a long time to tell Juliet in scene 5? That's Shakespeare. Shakespeare is delaying the delivering of the news to show us Juliet's frustration, to build the tension, and it also provides comic relief because she just goes on, and then she's like, oh, where's your mother? Blah, blah, blah. So it's like comedic relief and also is building the tension of the scene and the irony, because also remember, we know what the news the nurse has, but Juliet does not know. I hope that answered your question. Okay. All right, so if there are no more, feel free to ask me as I go along. I'm just going to really quick recap Act 3, Scene 1 and 2. And like I said earlier, the test can, sorry, let me start over. I keep seeing little questions. The test is going to stop at Scene 2. So I'm not going to test you on all of Act 3 because, you know, obviously we haven't finished it and we had the snow day. And so I didn't think that would be really fair to test you on something we haven't talked about. So the question is, can you also review the prologue? Yes, I will go back to the prologue in a little bit. After scene 1, Benvolio and Mercutio are standing around. If you recall, it is very hot outside, which is very important because Shakespeare often does this with temperature. It's a reflection of what people are feeling. So if it's hot and sticky, then you're kind of aggravated and your blood is hot, which means you're filled with rage. So he's setting in this fight scene in this hot public place, which is really interesting because in West Side Story, the fight between these two gangs is actually at night, and it's the opposite. So anyway, Benvolio and Mercutio are talking, and Mercutio's like, Benvolio, you've been known to start a fight too, every now and then. But Benvolio is clearly worried about them fighting in a public place because remember, it's forbidden. So Tybalt arrives on the scene, and Mercutio and him sort of go back and forth, and Tybalt says, I'm here to fight Romeo. And I think Mercutio is really sort of focused on honor and this idea of not letting someone say something bad about you and get away with it. And Tybalt is insulting Romeo, and Mercutio's like, you can't stand for that. You have to fight for your honor. And Tybalt says to Romeo, where is this famous line? Okay, Romeo, the love I bear thee can afford no better term than this. Thou art a villain. And that's the thing that Mercutio sort of responds to. He's like, oh my God, he just called you out. It is time to fight. And Romeo, of course, doesn't respond in any way that Mercutio or Tybalt would like. And he goes, Tybalt, the reason that I have to love thee doth much excuse the appertaining rage to such a greeting. Villain am I none. Therefore farewell, I see thou knowest me not. And Tybalt's like, what? No, I hate you. And Romeo says, I do protest I never injured thee, but I love thee better than that canst devise. And this is like the worst possible thing to say to Tybalt. He's basically saying, I love you, I can't explain why. And Tybalt's like, no, I will have none of that. And so instead of Romeo fighting Tybalt first, Mercutio decides to jump in and fight Tybalt instead. And Romeo's like, guys, break it up. And he goes to stand in front of Mercutio to prevent the fight. And then Tybalt stabs Mercutio underneath Romeo's arm. And Mercutio delivers his famous his repeating lines of, a plague on both your houses. I am sped. They have made worms meat of me. So he, in other words, like, I will be in the ground being eaten by the worms. They have killed me. A plague on both your houses. So remember, Mercutio is not belonging to either family. And so Mercutio dies, and Romeo finally comes out of whatever spell he's been under, and demonstrates this anger. And he goes after Tybalt, and he kills him. And so he gets revenge. And then Romeo has to run. And on the ground, we have Mercutio and Tybalt, and that's when all the other people show up. So the prince shows up, Lady Capulet, Lady Montague, Lord Capulet, Lord Montague, and they all show up. Lady Capulet's like, Romeo needs to die. He killed my nephew. He should be put to death. And she's like, don't listen to Benvolio. He's affected because he's friends with Romeo and part of the Montagues. And Lord Montague's like, don't kill my son, obviously. He was just avenging Mercutio's death. And so now that they're both dead, the law has sort of settled. And the prince is like, everyone shut up. I've just now lost my own kinsman. So the prince has lost Mercutio. And so that causes him pain. And he says, what I'm going to do is this. I'm not going to kill Romeo, because he avenged Mercutio's death, but I am going to banish him. So the prince banishes Romeo, and he says, and for that offense immediately we do exile him hence, and he can never come back. So if he ever comes back, he says that hour is his last. So Romeo is gone, and now this conflict is made even worse, and so it's all starting to go downhill. Because Romeo is married to Juliet, but he can't stay with her because he's got to head out of town. And so this is called the crisis of the play. This is the climax. This is the turning point. Both of these characters' death and the fact that Romeo is going to be banished. But they will be able to have one day, one night together, their wedding night, before he has to leave. All right, so finally, last scene, scene 2 of Act 3 is Juliet receives the news from the nurse. And this is like a very confusing scene because the nurse comes in acting, oh, Tybalt, the best friend I had, even though she probably doesn't know him well at all. And Juliet first thinks that she's saying that Romeo has killed himself. I don't know why, actually. I've often wondered about that. And then, so the nurse is like, Tybalt. She goes, oh, well, Tybalt must have killed Romeo. And so Juliet's like upset about that, obviously. And then finally the nurse reveals what actually happened. And Juliet is so conflicted because she's like, oh my gosh, you know, my cousin has been killed by my husband. Girl has problems. And she's like, you know, who do I side with? Where does my loyalty lie? With my family or with my husband? And that's kind of one of the main things in this play. And ultimately, she decides to be loyal to her husband, to Romeo. And this is really the beginning of the real break between Juliet and her family. So she's already lied to them, but now she's going to have to lie to them even more. And so the rest of Act 3 is Juliet truly starting to change in terms of her relationship with her family. All right, so that's the end of scene 2 in Act 3, and that's what I'm going to be testing you on. So a slightly shorter version of the test we were going to have. So yeah, you should work on your study guides and look at your questions, and I'm just going to wait a couple minutes and see if anybody has any questions. And then I have to eat my lunch before I do my next live broadcast with my sophomores. All right, so Tara wanted me to look at the prologue from the scene. Oh, from Act 2. Okay. Okay, so generally what the prologues, the chorus is doing at the beginning of an act, and it happens at the beginning of this play and also the beginning of Act 2, is they're kind of like relaying information that has happened. They're saying, okay, here's a quick summary. It's like actually a very quick sort of Spark Notes version of what's going on. So they're saying, oh, they've fallen in love. And now Romeo has forgotten about Rosalind, and now he's in love with Juliet. And it kind of gives you a little like heads up about this scene, like, hey, so Romeo's really good with words, and he's going to be telling Juliet that he loves her, and she's going to be like, does he really mean that? So it's just giving us a little summary and a little heads up of what's to happen. And then, of course, it's like, but obviously they're going to end up together. So chorus is always a funny part of a Shakespeare play. Usually it's like a dude comes out in tights and just says, here's what's happening so far, enjoy. All right, so I'm going to wait one more minute and see if there's any questions, and then I will sign off. Do you like my brick wall? Guys, we could be doing this again tomorrow, so you might be seeing more of the brick wall. Just saying. Do you want us to watch the movie? So someone's wondering if you should watch the movie. I actually don't think the movie is on Netflix. I haven't checked on Amazon Prime. So the Zeffirelli version might not be available unless it might be available on YouTube. You can try that. You're welcome to watch some of it. I don't think you have to watch to be able to do well in this test. But we'll certainly finish watching it in class. Oh, what a joyful play. All right, well, I am going to get ready to sign off, guys. As usual, your test format is multiple choice, and you're going to have quotes that you're going to have to match with the characters, and then you also have a couple short answer. So if you watch this video, go over your questions, and use your study guide, then I think you all will do it excellent job. I have the utmost faith in you. And you're welcome to GChat me or email me until 3. I will be here doing my live broadcasting. Hope you all enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your snow day. Bye, guys.